If you want to know about dragons, really know about them, in the game of D&D, there is only one definitive source, the Draconomicon. Welcome back to Dragon Week here on Green and Gold Gaming. Monster Week is an annual community event created and organized by Pointy Hat and Jenny D to bring together TTRPG creators on YouTube, and this year's theme is dragons. I'm Renegade Paladin, the primary narrator and editor here at Green and Gold Gaming, and this morning we're discussing the life cycle of dragons. Unless killed by some means, a dragon will live for 12 centuries or even more depending on their species, outspanning the natural lives of even the longest-lived elves. Regardless, all true dragons are hatched from eggs and undergo 12 distinct life stages, defined by new developments in the dragon's body and abilities. Dragon eggs vary greatly in size depending on the species of dragon that laid them. They are usually the same color as the parent's scales and have the same energy immunities. A female dragon begins producing eggs as a young adult and continues to do so until the very old stage. A male dragon becomes capable of fertilizing eggs at the young adult stage and remains so through the Wyrm stage. Eggs are fertilized internally and laid about a quarter of the way through the incubation period, which varies by species, typically inside the mother's lair. Eggs have particular requirements by species for incubation. Black dragon eggs must be immersed in acid or sunk into a swamp, while red and gold dragon eggs require open flame, and silver and white eggs must be frozen, for instance. Properly tended eggs have a nearly complete survival rate to hatching, but eggs removed from their nests have a high chance of not making it, depending upon the circumstances they find themselves in. Upon hatching until the age of 5, dragons are in the Wyrmling stage. Upon hatching, the first thing the Wyrmling does is look for food. If on its own, that will be its eggshell, but attendant parents will often offer food of the type the dragon favors. The young Wyrmling's next order of business is finding a lair. Even if living in its parents' lair, they will find a bolt hole somewhere to call their own. The rest of the Wyrmling stage is spent in development, mostly consisting of the dragon testing itself and receiving instruction from its parents. By the age of 6, the dragon will have typically doubled its length and entered the very young stage. The dragon typically seeks a new lair at this point, but in most ways remains much like a Wyrmling until its 15th year. Around 16 years of age, the dragon begins a second growth spurt that will eventually take it to its adult size, though their head and feet are still disproportionately large. Their intellect has begun to more fully develop as they learn to use their draconic abilities. By this time, the dragon starts wanting to establish its own territory and collect treasure, though it may have done so sooner. In metallic dragons, the young dragon likely still shares its parents' lairs and territory, but chromatic dragons, particularly the chaotic ones, are more likely to have evicted their young by this stage. Young dragons that do leave the nest move far from their home lairs to begin their independent lives. By 26, the dragon enters the juvenile stage of life and has achieved an adult's body proportions, though not their full power. Some species gain the first of their magical abilities at this age. The dragon enters adulthood by the age of 50, though it will keep growing for many centuries. At this stage, the dragon is ready to mate and generally does so as soon as possible. By this time, if the dragon has not already severed ties with parents and nestmates to establish its own territory, it does so without delay. By this stage, the scales have fully developed into formidable armor, requiring magic to reliably pierce, and the dragon begins mastering its first magical spells. Growth begins to slow, but not stop, as the dragon becomes a full adult at a century old, entering its prime decades of life. An adult dragon masters more magic and skills. At this stage, a dragon is most likely to take a long-term mate and share its lair with mate and offspring. Passing the age of 200, the dragon is now a mature adult. By this time, the dragon is a force in the world which it knows full well, and its name is known at least among its fellow dragons. They are confident in themselves and typically no longer seek to prove themselves in dangerous ventures. Rather, they often scheme with plans taking decades to complete. At this stage, the dragon will often relocate to a new, more defensible lair, or at least improve the defenses of its existing one as a matter of prudence, often including an attempt to seize more treasure. When bards sing of dragons destroying kingdoms and seizing their treasuries, the root of the story is often a dragon at this stage of life doing exactly that. A dragon is considered old by 400 years of age, and their physical growth typically stops. They become hardier and their minds and magical powers continue to advance throughout the remainder of their lives, however. By this time, the dragon begins to show signs of aging. Scales are chipped and cracked and begin to darken, or in some metallic dragons appear burnished, and the irises of their eyes begin to fade. By this time in their lives, the dragon has nothing more to prove, and destructive rampages are replaced by patient cunning. While they will defend what is theirs with all the ferocity of their youth, they will gauge their options very carefully before acting. By 600 years old, the dragon is considered very old and begins mastering powerful magic and draconic abilities while becoming further impervious to physical damage. Female dragons will lose their fertility within the next 2 centuries, and most will try to raise at least 2 clutches of eggs during this stage before the onset of menopause. A dragon that reaches 800 years old is considered ancient. Females have reached the end of their reproductive cycles, and dragons of both sexes are wont to agree to mentor younger dragons of their species, as they have little to fear from them and much knowledge to pass on. Most dragons at this stage have intellects that surpass even the brightest humanoids and naturally have centuries of life experience to draw upon. A dragon who lives to reach a millennium old is considered a Wyrm. Male dragons will reach the end of their reproductive years within the next century or two, but Wyrms command respect among dragonkind and their status practically guarantees them mates. Younger female dragons will move their lairs near an available Wyrm in hopes of their offspring gaining him as a mentor. After passing 1200 years of age, the dragon becomes a Great Wyrm and is at the pinnacle of its power. A Great Wyrm has nothing to prove to anyone, dragon or otherwise, and rarely ventures out, but if one does with an eye toward destruction, little can stop them. It is unclear how long a Great Wyrm lives beyond this, and dragons themselves are of little help. Since age is a marker of status in dragon society, they often exaggerate their own ages and they keep no birth records. 2 half-elf sages by the names of Guillaume and Sergeant de Chardin studied the age of dragons by noting when well-known dragons reached their Wyrm celebrations and tracking how long they lived thereafter. Scholars who came after sometimes suspect the pair to be silver dragons using a half-elf disguise, but whatever the truth, the pair eventually vanished with no known final resting place. The two established that the shortest-lived true dragon, the white, can live as long as 2100 years. The longest-lived true dragon is the gold, and they estimated their maximum at 4400 years. The end of a dragon's lifespan, coined the Twilight by the scholars, occurs when the years finally catch up with the dragon. They are mortal, after all, despite living for centuries after they stop growing. The Twilight can last for years, but sometimes a dragon will succumb when it initially sets in. Dragons can avoid the slow death of the Twilight in a few different ways, preferring to leave this life with dignity. Many Great Wyrms just disappear at the end of their lifespans. There are 3 possibilities for a dragon to manage this: departure, guardianship, or Dracolichdom. A dragon can simply will its spirit to depart. They prepare for this by eating their entire treasure hoard, and most will also travel to one of the fabled dragon graveyards, ancient places whose origins are lost to memory, even for dragons. These lie in hard-to-reach places and are dangerous to venture into, haunted by elemental vortexes, skeletal dragons occasionally spontaneously animating, and the ghosts of dragons past. Alternatively, a dragon can choose to become a guardian. After consuming its hoard, the dragon travels to the site it wishes to guard from the hereafter, and transforms into part of the landscape upon passing, its body forming a new geographic feature. The dragon becomes a guardian spirit of the area, which becomes a favorite spot for dragons to lay eggs, since the guardian will conceal the nests and ensure they are not disturbed. Young dragons may also commune with the guardian for advice. Finally, some chromatic dragons enlist the aid of a necromancer to cheat death, becoming a Dracolich. Many dragons, even evil ones, consider this option distasteful, but it remains open to dragons who choose to pursue it. Thus concludes our feature on the life cycles of dragons for Dragon Week. Be sure to check out the Dragon Week features from other creators as well. A link to today's playlist will be in the description. If you enjoy our content, please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you later in the week for more discussion of dragons.